Last weekend, I was in Vegas, and I was given a wonderful opportunity by the Square Enix team, and I was invited to play the two current demos for the Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. And once again, I just want to give a warm shout out to the Square Enix team for inviting me out and providing me with such an awesome opportunity. The opening scene in the cave with Tifa and Sephiroth and Cloud, quote, I love how this was recreated. It looks so nice, and it's just everything that it's so faithful to the original game, and I love it. I will admit it took me a long time to figure out that that wasn't actually Cloud. It was just fooling me and just didn't really process, but we're fine now. And one of the things I like the most about Rebirth so far is the menus. They're really clean. I love how the characters stand out in the background, and the image in the background that you see is also going to change based on where you are in the game. And the commands that you can use on the ground, you will be able to use them in the air most of the time. A lot of the complaints that people had about the original game, the remake, is that the air combat was pure trash. But they seem to have improved on that in this game. And here you can see Sephiroth has access to all the high-powered magic, and that is a sign right there that this game is going to be very faithful to the original. If you know anything about synergy skills, what you can do with them is just use them. They don't require any resource like ATB. You can just pop them, but it does require 2 party members, and that seems to be the best way to accumulate ATB in this game so far. I'm going to go over that just a little bit here in a bit, but what you can do is switch them from type A to type B. So based on what preference you want the skills to be on, offensive and defensive, you can change that to your liking. And on the right hand side, as you can see, another thing I really like is that it gives a really nice description of the skills. For example, it says right here, Braver used in the air increases potency, which means that they are really focusing on the air combat, which was a big complaint in the original game. And mostly, all the skills that you can use on the ground, you can use on the air too. And to follow up on that, it almost looks like there are better skills to be using in the air. Like Braver seems to be stronger in the air, as opposed to if you were to use it on the ground. Now for the sake of the demo, I wasn't able to customize the materia and loadouts in general. I talked to other people in the room that were playing with me, and they said that they were able to, but not one time during this specific demo I was able to do that. So maybe I was in the wrong place at the wrong time trying to do the wrong thing. So I did not get adequate footage on that, but obviously when the game releases, you will be able to do that. So starting off, the combat seems a lot more complicated, and we'll get to that later in the other demo when we have access to more characters and more abilities. But it seems that the ATB has been nerfed a bit. The ATB acquisition seems to go up a lot slower than it does in the original game. But that's what I think the synergy skills are for. It emphasizes the fact that since this is a team game, they want us to use more team abilities, which is fair. I saw other creators play it, and I was getting a little bit envious, but turns out, because of this opportunity, I was able to get my hands on some really high quality footage for Rebirth and give you my take on how I think the game is going to be and what could possibly come in the future. Another really interesting mechanic that I saw in this game that wasn't in the original was First Strike. And to my knowledge, that's a way to get the preemptive encounter, and maybe later down the road we'll be able to see the pincer type of thing where the enemy gets the first strike and then they do some kind of opening attack. But it's a nice little thing because if you think about it, that's, you know, the first strike, that's the way to get the jump on the enemy. And here, the way that Sephiroth works is pretty interesting. He seems to have 2 stances, and his other stance, retaliation stance, seems to be a very defensive one. And it seems that if you hit the attack button when somebody else is attacking you, you can parry. I wasn't able to utilize this very well, though, because most of the enemies died within just seconds, so... But he does have a thing with the aura charge. If that charges, you can use the pierce or the swords dance. And again, I wasn't able to utilize that too well because, you know, the enemies were just dying so quickly. However, I'm sure when the game officially releases, we'll be able to use him to the full effect. Now this game introduced climbing, and I like how they made the platforms yellow. Kind of reminds me of current Resident Evil. I will say that the climbing was pretty bad. It didn't seem to be optimized whatsoever. As you can see here, I'm kind of struggling to go up. I wasn't sure if because of I was waiting for other characters, I wasn't able to go up. But I did notice that at one point I wasn't able to record it. That Tifa kind of glitched out, and that was just funny. Before anybody in the comments section says anything, I do want to clarify that the team asked us to play on graphics mode versus performance mode. So if you're wondering why the game is in 30 FPS, that is exactly why. Coming up here, I did find this little minigame funny. We're basically using a vacuum cleaner to suck up like extra materia gas. Felt a little bit slow, you know. If it was a bit faster, that would have been great, but I'm not going to complain about it. I just thought it was funny that we're using an oversized vacuum to clean up extra Mako gas. Mako, however you say it. And now here, the Materia Guardian, but we all know him as Materia Keeper. One thing I really appreciate about this game is that it's able to make the game feel so faithful to the original. Like, you can look at this guy, Materia Keeper, Materia Guardian, however you want to pronounce it, and just know that it's that boss. It does a really good job at keeping things looking and feeling original with a modern take. This fight for me was a lot of fun. I was able to utilize the knowledge and tech skill that I have from the previous game and apply it to this fight. He's basically a big punching bag, and it's kind of like, hey, here you go, use all your commands, use all your knowledge, and just, you know, beat the shit out of him. I'm also a big fan of the stagger sound effect. It's new, it feels more punchy, and it makes you feel like it means more. And one of the things I hated about the original game were the damage gates on bosses. And if you don't know what those are, it's whenever you're damaging the boss and then it loses a certain amount of HP and then gives you that sign, hey, no, you can't damage it any more than it already is. Obviously, this complaint derives from the fact that I'm a speedrunner and I want to be able to utilize my skills and, you know, optimization and things like that to kill a boss as quickly as possible. But I know why damage gates are a thing. It's to show off the different phases of the boss, and, you know, that's just coming from me. It's a biased thing. It's just something I've never been a fan of, but it is a bit annoying. I know I'm not the only person that feels that way. I thought this part was interesting. Materia Keeper just latches onto the ceiling, and you just have to hit a limb and it knocks him down, and you just kind of resume beating the shit out of him. At this point during the boss fight, the game now shows off the new synergy abilities. The synergy abilities are interesting. They do require ATB, but they also require these little pips that you see on the UI near where the ATB is. As you see here and then later, you will see that the synergy abilities do give off different properties. For example, I saw that one synergy ability gave like infinite MP for a certain amount of time, and that seemed really cool. I think the synergy abilities are going to be a really good staple, a bread and butter to this game's combat system. So here on the final phase, use the synergy ability, pressure it, and you go ham on it. It's a really fun boss fight, very clean. I like it a lot. I think it was a great introduction to the new combat system for the game. Pretty short, only takes about 15 minutes to beat, but let's move on to the next one. So now we begin the second demo. This is also not too long, but there is a lot of stuff that you can do. Obviously here we do have access to not the entire party of what we know, but we do have Red XIII and we do have Chocobos, which are really nice. So here it kind of reminds me of Hot and Cold Chocobo. You see a question mark above the Chocobo's head, and then you can do the scent, and it provides you like a direction on where to go, and then like in Hot and Cold Chocobo, you can peck at the ground and you'll get a reward. I didn't do this, but it is something that you can do. We weren't provided the most amount of time to do everything that we wanted to, but we were given a nice little ample amount of time though. So, and it's really easy to call your Chocobo. You just hit R1 and you can just hop right on it and you can dash and go pretty fast, and it's a great way without the buggy, which we saw in TGS footage, to get around the world map. Now, due to the demo's limitations, we weren't able to customize our party as we want to. As it says here, in the final game, you will be able to freely assemble your parties, including their equipment and materia. But here we only have Team 1, Team 2, and Team 3. Now, I do like how they put random materials on the world map for you to collect, and most of those, from what I've seen in this demo, will go towards crafting, which here will be used to make potions, high potions, phoenix drafts, and cushions for the sake of the demo. But I do like that the game gives you that ability to utilize those materials and then use them during the crafting system. I'm not sure how complicated the crafting system will get later. Hopefully we'll be able to make some weapons with it. If it's limited to items, then that's fine. However, at the bottom it does say remove from to-do list. I wasn't able to do anything with that, but maybe you can make certain things that you really like and put them on priority or something, so those materials don't get used. I'm not really sure how that's going to work. I did see, though, that you get Transmuter EXP, which, to me, what that sounds like is the more you craft, the more complicated things that you'll be able to get access to, like recipes, things like that. So here, Red 13, completely unique. Now we get to play him, and he's got this thing called Vengeance Mode, which has a unique ability which gets filled up by using regular attacks, ATB stuff, and seems that whenever you do go into that Vengeance Mode, it increases his attack power and dodge speed, so it's just a win-win to use it. And here, Aerith in this game has changed completely. Her ability before was just Tempest, but now her regular attack also chains with Tempest, so you can hold down the regular attack and then charge Tempest that way. And then her ability is called Ward Shift, which is kind of like a teleportation. If you lay down wards, which is like Arcane Ward, and then there's another one which provides invincibility while you are casting spells, you can just kind of teleport to each ward. I'm not sure how long each ward lasts, but I think it can be like a really interesting way to utilize Aerith. Now, unfortunately, I wasn't given enough time to mess around with Barret too much, but I do like his new ability called Bonus Round. Load your weapon with unique bullets that increase stagger and power up your attacks. Maybe that'll get amplified later in the game, kind of maybe how Irvine does in FF8, where you can switch out ammos and have them do different things. I do like the Chocobo stops. There are signs that you can just pick up while you see these little things, and then they will provide to be like quick travel points on the world map. Also, another really funny thing is that if you're on the world map and you do see a bench, you can't just rest there, but it does require a resource called a cushion, and then you can do it. So it's kind of like using a tent or a cottage on the world map, and I do like that. I do like these on the world map, areas of interest. They provide you kind of like a mini little hunt. Now, I wasn't able to get all of the objectives for these hunts because some of the enemies just weren't able to get pressured, and they died before I could even do that third objective. Other people that I was playing with in the room also had that same issue, so before you say skill issue, I don't think it was meant to be done in the first place, but I was really interested to see what kind of reward or thing that I was able to get by completing all the objectives, but I guess that'll just have to come for a later date. And one thing is in this game is that you can provide party members with an auto cast or an auto ability usage. I wasn't really fond of that. I wasn't sure how to turn that off. But I know that you can, now that the footage is out and everything. I was talking to a couple buddies and they were saying that you could. But that was one thing that was really throwing me off about the combat, and I'm not used to being in the remake. So, and again, I do feel that the ATB acquisition was pretty heavily nerfed in this game thus far. And this is what I was talking about with synergy abilities possibly being the bread and butter of this game. If you see here in the screenshot, it says that some abilities provide unique buffs, increasing limit break levels, you know, unlimited MP or extending the duration of enemies being staggered. I think that this is really nicely implemented, and I'm very curious and excited to see how these are going to be used in the later game. Now we are coming up to Jinan, and I love how it looks. It's just huge. I love the how you can see everything, all the water, and like I said before, I just am very blown away how they have been so faithful to the original game. I just can't wait to see what else lies in store for us. I do like this new character, Rhonda. Seems kind of like a bad bitch. Knows about how you are all guilty, but lets you go anyway because she's kind of the same as you. Seems that she's gonna get quite the payout if she turns in any of you, especially Aerith, with a $500,000 prize, but turns the other cheek. And as you can see here, you can see Biggs, Wedge, and Jesse are all on this list. Does that mean that they are all alive? At the end of the remake, we get a pretty good indication that Biggs and Jesse are alive. But Wedge? It wasn't confirmed if he was dead or not, but if he's not, that's gonna be interesting. I don't think he's dead, personally. I do like how the first thing that happens whenever you enter Jinan is Priscilla asking for help. And it's a little bit different in this game as opposed to the original when she's already getting attacked. However, it is, again, very faithful to the original game. That's the first thing that happens. Granted that you don't go shopping and all that, you head straight to the beach area. I do find it funny how it's Yuffie that's getting attacked and not Priscilla. But what's interesting is that Priscilla already knows who Yuffie is, so that'll be interesting to see how that gets explained in the story. And this is the introduction to the boss known as Bottomswell, but is renamed Terror of the Deep. I'm not sure why they didn't keep the original name, but whatever. Here we go. First off, I am really surprised with how difficult this fight was. He does a lot of attacks, and I really like the way that the bubble mechanic stays true to the original game. I know I've been saying that a lot, but this game really does feel like it's super faithful, and I love it. One thing I was having some trouble with was getting up in the air and going toe-to-toe with them in aerial combat. I wasn't able to figure out how to do that efficiently. I know that you can. I know that some synergy skills do allow you to do that, but I wasn't able to take advantage of him as much as I would like to. He does have this really annoying attack where he grabs one of your party members and then, you know, you gotta target the Finn or target him and then that will break them out. I kept getting freed up pretty heavily with this attack and I didn't perform as well as I would have liked to. So here Aerith is in the bubble. It does say use magic, but I was being stubborn and using the melee attacks to break her out. Either way, I got the job done, but yes, you want to use magic. I guess I was just too heavily concerned about my ATB usage, since, like I said before, it's hard enough to get ATB accumulation in the first place. There is perfect guarding in this game. I unfortunately wasn't able to grab that footage. Some of it didn't transfer over. Fortunately, most of it did. But I don't know if you can perfect guard every single attack in the entire game, which begs the question of, is this game even possible to do no damage with, if properly executed? Granted that you perfect guard every single attack in the game, that seems a little unreasonable to execute, but I guess we'll have to find out later. The window for perfect guarding, from what I saw and felt, was really strict. I don't know if it's frame perfect, I don't think it is, but it's a really nice mechanic that everybody in the game can use, and I think that was just genius. So as you can see, the Divine Punishment synergy ability seems to be very, very good here. Provides a passive attack buff for your entire party. I don't believe I mentioned it before, but the circle button provides what was in the original game, the parry dodge. Now Tifa, it works really well with, because her dodge is now that slide, which was the original parry. In order for it to do that, you had to equip the parry materia, and that was able to be utilized really heavily by canceling moves into the parry and then being able to do them again. So That will be really powerful in this. Now here is something with the limit breaks. You can use different ones, but some require the pips in order to use. For example, here, Tifa with Dolphin Flurry requires 1, which begs the question of, are there going to be more powerful limit breaks later in the game that may require all of them? Who knows? I noticed that in the demo, the other one, with Cloud using Ascension also required a pip. So that will be pretty interesting to see how it develops later in the game. And here to also follow up with that, Aerith is now doing Planet's Protection, which I think all of you know how really strong that is, especially in the original game, providing invincibility. Overall, I am incredibly happy with what I've played of Rebirth so far. There are some things that I think will get fixed, maybe the ATB acquisition, maybe not. I'm not exactly sure. I did want to do some things that I think were not really available to do, like the many little deadly hunts, getting all the objectives. I was not able to do that and show off what could come of that, but I am incredibly happy. I'm not sure if we're going to get another playable demo here in the future. I'm sure we will. However, this is an awesome game. I cannot wait for the official release. I am super excited. It's going to be a massive game from what I've seen. The world map is going to be huge. And yeah, that's all I have for today, though. Thank you for watching. And yeah, I will keep you updated if more of this playable stuff comes in the future. Thanks for watching.